My entitled stepsister moved into our house, seized my room, tried to control me with a 2-page rulebook, and ultimately shattered our family dynamic. Let me set the scene for you. I'm a 15-year-old girl and my dad's only child. My parents split up when I was really young, and since then, it's just been my dad and me. He's a successful businessman, owning commercial properties across several states. He's an amazing dad, always doing his best for me. But his work keeps him busy, and he often travels, so we don't get to spend as much time together as I'd like. When my parents divorced, I was just 5. My dad got full custody, and he's been raising me alone ever since my mom passed away when I was 10. For the last few years, it's been just the two of us, figuring things out together. Despite the challenges, we've always had each other's backs. My dad even started taking 1 week off every month to work from home so we could have quality time together. Those weeks became my favorite part of the month, our little tradition that made everything feel perfect. I never felt like I was missing out on having a mom. My life felt complete. But last year, everything changed when my dad remarried a woman named Karen. She's 35, quite a bit younger than my dad, who's 52. They'd been dating for about a year before tying the knot. I met Karen before the wedding, but to be honest, I didn't like her from the start. If you ask me, she's a gold digger who only married my dad for his money. She was barely out of her own divorce when she met my dad through a dating app. What does he even see in her? I couldn't tell. But I kept my thoughts to myself because I didn't want to hurt my dad. I know it hasn't been easy for him, being without my mom. And to my confusion, Karen seemed to genuinely make him happy. It's not that I wanted my dad to stay single forever, I wanted him to find someone. Just not her. Anyone but her. Karen has a daughter, Ashley, who's 16. After the wedding, she started going to the same school as me. I don't know much about Ashley's biological dad, but Karen despises him and doesn't like Ashley visiting him. Ashley still goes over to his house occasionally, but Karen constantly tries to talk her out of it. Ashley barely sees him as it is. And Ashley? She's the reason I'm writing this. She's spoiled, rude, selfish, and has an attitude bigger than our house. She thinks she's better than everyone, constantly looking down on me and my dad. She never lifts a finger to help, spends all her time on her phone, and expects the world to cater to her. Karen enables her every whim, never saying no. Since moving in, Ashley has been nothing but trouble. She steals my clothes, makeup, and jewelry, then denies it. She sneaks her boyfriend into the house when no one's around and threatens me not to tell. Honestly, I couldn't care less about her sneaking boys, and that's her problem. But the rest of it? It's unbearable. Karen never holds Ashley accountable for anything. Instead, it's like her mission is to give Ashley everything she asks for, no matter how unreasonable. My room. When Karen and Ashley moved in, they brought a mountain of stuff with them. Karen took over the master bedroom, previously my dad's sanctuary, and filled it with her flashy furniture and accessories. But that wasn't enough. She convinced my dad to give my room to Ashley, saying Ashley needed the space more since she'd be leaving for college soon, and I'd get my room back eventually. I begged my dad to reconsider, but Karen's argument seemed to sway him. He said I should try to make Ashley feel welcome, calling her my big sister. As if. The guest room, the only other decent space in the house, became Karen's personal Pilates studio. I wasn't even allowed to step inside, let alone use it. That left me with the smallest room, barely big enough for a bed and desk. Most of my belongings had to be moved to the attic. My dad apologized, offering to rearrange the guest room if I wanted it. But it was obvious he didn't mean it. Where would all of Karen's equipment go? So, I didn't push. Part of me thought about suggesting that Ashley take the tiny room instead. After all, she'd only be here a few years. But I didn't want to make things harder for my dad. Despite everything, I tried to make the best of it. I spent most of my time at school, immersed in extracurriculars. My new room didn't matter much when I had my books, laptop, and guitar. My friends were my escape, their homes became my refuge. I poured myself into my studies, determined to get good grades and leave for college as soon as I could. But Ashley wasn't satisfied with just taking my room. No, she made it her mission to make my life miserable, at school and at home. She spread rumors about me, called me names, and humiliated me every chance she got. At school, she even stole from my locker, but when I told my dad, he dismissed it as a misunderstanding. Ashley didn't just cross the line, she obliterated it. And this was only the beginning. My dad had always told me to be patient with Ashley. She's had a rough life, he would say, urging me to understand her actions. But that patience had worn thin. Ashley wasn't just difficult, she was manipulative. At school, she made me miserable since middle school while she was already a junior. At home, avoiding her was nearly impossible. She constantly intruded, her presence like an unrelenting storm. Worst of all, she tried to turn my dad against me. Subtle manipulation was her weapon, never outright lies, but clever insinuations. I've always wanted a little sister, she'd say sweetly, planting seeds of guilt. Her saccharine words made my dad believe I was the one with the problem. Every attempt I made to explain fell flat. She's just adjusting, he'd repeat, brushing off my concerns. Ashley played the perfect daughter role to perfection. She buttered him up, coaxing him for gifts and cash at every opportunity. When she turned 16, my dad surprised her with a car, an expensive one. I wasn't jealous of the material things, but it stung when he started spending more time with Ashley and Karen than with me. My father, who once seemed like my safe haven, was slipping away. Ashley didn't miss a chance to rub it in. Once you're off to college, he'll forget all about you, she'd sneer, her words cutting deep. Still, I told myself she was just immature, her jabs meaningless. I clung to the belief that my dad would always remember me, no matter how close he grew to her. Last week marked Karen and my dad's anniversary. They planned a weekend trip to my uncle's beach house. My dad hesitated about staying overnight, but Karen and Ashley convinced him it would be fine. I'll take care of everything, Ashley promised, her voice dripping with fake sincerity. My heart sank. The idea of being left alone with her felt like a nightmare waiting to unfold. I tried to reassure myself, telling Dad he should enjoy the trip and that I could handle things. I even promised to call if anything went wrong. Little did I know, that promise would be tested sooner than I anticipated. As soon as they left, Ashley cornered me, a smug grin on her face. She handed me a stack of papers. "What's this?" I asked, confused. "The rulebook," she declared. My stomach churned. "You're going to follow everything written here for the next 2 days, or I'll make your life at school a living hell." Her tone was icy, a sinister edge behind her smile. I unfolded the pages and scanned the ridiculous list. Lies to Dad during his check-ins. Cleaning up after her party. Keeping people out of her room. Letting her friends use mine if needed. She even demanded a share of my pocket money to fund her event. The audacity left me speechless. For the first time, I snapped. "I don't care about your stupid rules," I spat. "I'll tell Dad everything if you throw this party. You know he hates this kind of thing." That was a mistake. Her smug expression darkened. "Watch your mouth," she hissed, "unless you want me to do something you'll regret." The threat was clear. Ashley was capable of making my life unbearable. Reluctantly, I pretended to agree, nodding along as if terrified. Inside, a plan was already forming. I would use her arrogance against her. The rulebook? Proof. The party? More evidence. I'd finally expose her to my dad, once and for all. That night, the house transformed into chaos. Guests flooded in, beer bottles clinked, and laughter echoed through the halls. The air smelled of spilled drinks and trouble. I played my part perfectly, feigning obedience while secretly capturing the madness on my phone. Photos, videos, every misstep was documented. When I wasn't documenting, I was protecting. I locked my room and my dad's bedroom, determined to keep them untouched. Ashley? She was too busy basking in her moment, oblivious to my quiet rebellion. Morning came, and the aftermath was even worse. The living room was a battlefield, trash everywhere, people passed out in awkward corners. My heart raced as I picked up my phone and dialed my dad. My voice shook as I explained everything. At first, he didn't believe me, but when he arrived to see the destruction himself, the shock on his face said it all. His gaze fell on the rulebook, Ashley's twisted instructions laid bare. Karen stood frozen, her face a mask of disbelief. My dad didn't hold back. He confiscated Ashley's phone, revoked her shopping privileges, and declared that she would be moving into the smaller room. My room was off limits. But the final blow was the car. It's going, he said coldly, and the money's going into her college fund. Ashley's tears quickly turned into fury. She screamed, calling me every name she could think of. You'll never be anything, she spat, her words venomous. I almost laughed at her tantrum. Nothing she said could undo the victory of the night before. My dad, however, wasn't finished. Apologize, he demanded. Ashley refused, storming out in a fit of rage. I hate you both, she shouted, slamming the door behind her. Karen looked pale, fear flickering in her eyes. I knew what she was thinking. Ashley's words weren't empty. This was far from over. Karen defended Ashley even after her dramatic exit. She accused Dad of overreacting, claiming his decision to take away Ashley's car was unnecessarily harsh. She argued for a simpler punishment, grounding Ashley for a few weeks rather than completely upending her life. Dad dismissed me to my room to let them talk, but even from behind closed doors, their conversation quickly turned into a heated argument. Raised voices pierced through the walls, and I felt a pang of guilt. Had I gone too far? All I wanted was to teach Ashley a lesson, not spark chaos at home. Later, Dad came to my room. He apologized for not believing me earlier, explaining that he was just trying to make Ashley feel welcome in her new environment. He reassured me that I was his top priority and hadn't intended to make me feel less important. His words eased some of my guilt, but dinner that night was another story. The tension in the air was suffocating. Karen tried to talk to Ashley, but she stormed out again, declaring she should have never moved in. I never intended to cause such a rift between Karen and Dad, but now, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had disrupted everything by exposing Ashley's true behavior. Ashley's silent treatment. Since then, Ashley has refused to apologize or even acknowledge me. It's as if I don't exist to her, but honestly, I'm okay with that. Dad warned her not to mess with me at school, and for now, my school life remains peaceful. At home, Dad is stuck to his guns. Ashley only gets her phone during school hours, and it's confiscated the moment she steps through the door. As for her car? Turns out Dad wasn't bluffing, he's already found a buyer. Naturally, this has become the biggest source of contention in the house. Ashley's tantrums over the car are relentless, and Karen and Dad's arguments about it seem endless. I wish Ashley would just apologize, even insincerely, to resolve the conflict. Dad would forgive her in a heartbeat if she showed even a shred of remorse and promised to behave. But her stubbornness knows no bounds. Karen has also grown noticeably colder toward me. While she hasn't said anything outright, her icy glares are hard to miss. I keep questioning if I was wrong, even though Dad insists I wasn't. The constant tension is exhausting, and I'm beginning to regret my decision to reveal Ashley's behavior. Everything feels so much more complicated now. A new twist. 3 days later, things took an unexpected turn. Ashley's casual remark about wishing she'd never moved and seemed to hold more weight than I realized. That morning, Karen dropped us off at school, and Dad was supposed to pick us up later. But when school ended, Ashley was nowhere to be found. Dad and I waited, thinking she might have lingered with friends, but as minutes stretched into hours, concern grew. Karen wasn't home, so we couldn't ask her if she heard anything. When we finally called her, she started ringing Ashley's friends to check if she was with anyone. 30 minutes passed with no leads. The worry in Dad's voice mirrored my own growing anxiety. That's when it hit me, her boyfriend. I debated whether to mention him, not wanting to sound like I was tattling, but with no other clues and panic rising, I felt it might be the only way to help. When I finally told them, Karen's face twisted with worry. She asked me, almost frantically, if I knew the guy Ashley had been with. I nodded. He was a senior at my school, though I barely knew him. I didn't have his number, but I asked around until I got it. The tension was palpable as I dialed his number. When he picked up, I nervously asked if Ashley was with him. His reply? A simple no. Karen immediately grabbed the phone from my hand, her voice breaking with urgency as she asked him again, this time pleading for honesty. After a pause, he finally admitted the truth. Ashley had gone to her dad's house. Karen exploded. Her face turned red as she screamed at my dad, accusing him of driving Ashley away. She kept yelling that Ashley had never done anything like this before. My dad, trying to remain calm, told her she was overreacting. If she's with her dad, she's safe. There's nothing to worry about, he reasoned. But Karen wasn't having it. To put her mind at ease, she called Ashley's dad. Her voice trembled as she asked if Ashley was there. His answer cut through the air. Yes, Ashley had come over after school and planned to stay for a while. That was the breaking point. Karen's anger boiled over as she demanded to speak with Ashley. Her dad's response was firm. Ashley didn't want to talk to anyone. Karen's voice grew louder, accusing him of keeping her daughter against her will. He shot back, saying Ashley could stay wherever she wanted. His final words hit like a dagger. If you cared so much, you shouldn't have pushed her away. Hanging up the call, Karen turned her fury back onto my dad. The yelling escalated, and I was sent to my room, but I couldn't help eavesdropping. Karen's screams echoed through the house. You've ruined everything, she shouted. Now my ex has control over my daughter. My dad countered, telling her she was overthinking, and suggested they go to Ashley's dad's house to talk things out. Karen, slightly calmer, agreed. But just as the conversation seemed to cool, Karen turned her rage onto me. If it weren't for your jealousy, none of this would have happened, she snapped. Her words stung, but my dad's reaction was immediate. His voice thundered through the walls as he defended me. You're delusional if you think this is anyone's fault but Ashley's. Their argument spiraled further. My dad accused Ashley of acting entitled and blamed Karen for enabling her behavior. I couldn't take it anymore and retreated fully to my room, trying to block out the noise. A while later, my dad came in, his face lined with frustration. He told me he was taking Karen to Ashley's dad's house and handed me some cash to order dinner. I nodded, silently hoping they'd return with Ashley. Hours passed, and when they finally came back, Ashley wasn't with them. My heart sank as I asked my dad why she hadn't returned. His voice was steady but tinged with disappointment as he explained, Ashley said she's staying with her dad now and doesn't want to come back. Karen, furious and defeated, turned her anger back to me. This is all your fault. You should apologize to Ashley, she yelled. Her demand reignited another fight with my dad, and once again, I was sent to my room. That was 3 days ago. Ashley still hasn't come back. Karen calls her every day, and even my dad has apologized to her, asking her to return. But Ashley refuses. Karen keeps insisting that the only way to fix this is for me to apologize. My dad, however, stands firm. He won't let me do it. I told him I didn't mind apologizing if it would resolve the chaos, but he shut that idea down immediately. I decided to follow his lead, but deep down, I felt a tiny flicker of relief that Ashley wasn't around anymore. If not for the constant fighting, I'd wish she'd never come back.